Now give me the beat.
There we go. All right. Dr. DeCrest.
Hello to all of you. I'm Dominic Ducrest, and I'm very pleased to welcome you to this Skin and Digital Summit on June 24, which is hosted by Advancing Innovation in Dermatology. I will be your moderator and timekeeper. And as chair, we have today Dr. Day. Dr. Day is a board-certified dermatologist who specializes in laser, cosmetic, and surgical dermatology in New York City. Dr. Day is a clinical associate professor of dermatology at New York University Langone Medical Centers, where she has won awards for dedication and excellence in teaching dermatology. If I may say, Dr. Day, other patient, is journalism. She wrote several books, and she's host for Dr. Radio on Sirius XM with her own award-winning 2-hour live call in a radio show. And I've just heard that she has just been nominated by Newsweek as a top 3 US cosmetic dermatologist. Dr. Day, I would like to welcome you.
Thank you. It's great. It's great to be here. Great to host with you. And when you call or ask me to participate in anything, I'm always in because I love working with you, and you always bring the most insightful and up-to-date information that's useful across the board in medicine and aesthetics. So I appreciate you having me on with you.
Thank you, Doris. Thank you. Okay, so I just have 2 slides to introduce this session. First, I would like to share this Skin Digital vision. The vision of the Skin and Digital Summit is very simple, is to create and facilitate a comprehensive conversation about what advances in digital technology and AI can bring to the skin business at large. And when I mean the skin business at large, this is dermatology, aesthetic, and skincare. And I would like to very much pay tribute to the scientific partners which are following me since 1 year. I want to say first, Advancing Innovation in Dermatology, which is hosting this summit today. Also, the Journal of the European Academy of Dermatology. Also, IMCAS, and I would like to pay special tribute to IMCAS because they have hosted 2 first summits in June, on June 4th and June 5th. So I would like to thank IMCAS particularly. And also as scientific partner, I have the International Federation of Psoriasis Association. There is also what is called Global Skin, or IDPO, which is the International Federation for all dermatologic patient-driven association. And then the last and not least, the Master of Aesthetic from San Diego. Next slide, please. So the program today we have a 1-hour talk, very straightforward. We are going to have 4 speakers. First speaker will be Dr. Roxana Daneshu, talking about access to dermatology and digital technology. Then Dr. Lipov will address the big issue and the major issue about misinformation in dermatology. Then we'll have a presentation from Alexander Zink from Germany. Is the smart bathroom the future of skincare and dermatology? And then we'll have a pitch presentation from Dr. Joran Hart about a company that he has created about democratizing dermatology and skincare with AI. And this summit is also broadcasted thanks to IMCAS, as we are live on Zoom. Also, IMCAS is broadcasting via their platform, IMCAS Academy. And I would like to welcome more or less 700 registrants which are there. So I would like to hand over to our first speaker, Dr. Roxana Daneshu. She's a board-certified dermatology PhD fellow of the American Academy of Dermatology. She is a clinical scholar in dermatology and a postdoctoral scholar in biomedical data science at the Stanford School of Medicine. Her research interest is at the intersection of AI and dermatology, with a specific focus on addressing algorithm bias. Thank you so much, Roxana, for joining us one more, because you have been there at the first summit back in December, and you will be speaking today about access to care, to dermatology care and digital technology. Thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited today to be talking about access to dermatology care and digital technology, and particularly I will be focusing on how artificial intelligence, or AI, can be useful to the field of dermatology. And in doing so, we'll review where we're at right now and what the exciting potentials are for the future. So you may have seen these kinds of headlines in the news over the last several years about how AI, or artificial intelligence, is better at dermatologists at diagnosing skin cancer. And so headlines like, an AI doctor will now see you. Is that really where we're at right now with AI in dermatology? These are some recent headlines from research that I and other colleagues have been involved with. We've found that most dermatology algorithms don't actually have transparent data yet, and that a lot of the data that's been used to build these algorithms doesn't represent diverse global populations. And these are some of the issues that I'll discuss briefly before shifting out to a more hopeful message about how I think AI actually can help revolutionize our field. So 2 areas we'll talk about where we stand in dermatology: the data that's been used to train these algorithms, and data is very important because it's how AI algorithms learn to make predictions. And then also where we stand with algorithms. So we did this scoping review that was published in JAMA Dermatology, looking at 70 publications. And one of the major themes that we found is that most dermatology data sets are siloed. So in this image, in this figure here, every purple square represents a paper, and every circle represents data that was used to develop that paper, research paper. And usually there are algorithms developed within that paper. The green circles represent data that's shared, meaning it's public. You or I could download it, look at it, use it for algorithm development, while the red circles are data that is siloed, not shared, not available to look at. And one thing you will notice is that most of this data is siloed, which actually impedes our ability to do amazing technology development. The International Skin Imaging Collaboration, however, which is #1 in this, is the leader in open data sets. And you will see that there are many, many papers that have been generated from that data. The other issue is that looking at what was reported out about these data sets, since we didn't have access to many of them, there's a concern about label noise that's used to train AI algorithms. So out of 56 studies that looked at skin cancer, 20 of them did not have biopsy-proven labels for the images. They were labeled by dermatologists saying, I think this is a melanoma. And that is an issue because on average, a dermatologist has to biopsy about 7 to 8 suspected melanomas before discovering a true one. The other issue that we noticed is that most of the studies did not report out about the diversity of skin tones used for developing their AI algorithms. In fact, in the 10% of studies that did report this out, we found that most of them actually significantly underrepresented brown and black skin tones. This was part of the impetus behind some of our work in creating the Diverse Dermatology Images dataset, creating open access, biopsy-proven, diverse skin images that we can share with the community for benchmarking AI algorithms. And here, this QR code links to our website and our first release. And I just want to show you some of the work that briefly show some of the work that we've done with this data set with the hope of improving things for the future. We found that when we tested one of the existing algorithms that was state of the art, it had a huge performance gap between Fitzpatrick 1 and 2 and Fitzpatrick 5 and 6, mostly because this algorithm had not been trained on a diverse set of images. When we fine-tuned the algorithm, but only on the images of white skin, we found that we had a boost in performance, which is not an unexpected because usually new data sets might have differences in the distribution of skin disease or how lighting is done or what kind of cell phone was used. However, the gap still remained. It was only when we fine-tuned on diverse data were we able to close the gap in performance between Fitzpatrick 1 and 2 and Fitzpatrick 5 and 6, showing the importance of having diverse data in our algorithm development. And of course, we want our algorithms to be fair because we want them to improve access for our patients. We don't want them to end up exacerbating health disparities. Now that is the state of the data. What are the state of the algorithms? Currently, there are no FDA-approved algorithms in dermatology in the United States. Globally, there are algorithms that have CE mark in Europe and regulatory approval in Australia. However, there are some exciting things coming down the pipeline. The first prospective randomized controlled trial of AI working in dermatology was recently completed and published in the Journal of Investigative Dermatology. This AI algorithm had been trained across hundreds of thousands of images across 178 diagnoses. It was a small trial, but it had some exciting results with implications for our field. They found that they took 4 dermatology trainees and 4 non-dermatology trainees and had them see 576 patients and take pictures live during the clinical visit and have AI support or not have AI support. And what they found is that for the dermatology trainees, the AI support did not improve their diagnostic accuracy. However, the AI assistance did significantly improve the diagnostic accuracy of the non-specialist trainees. And as we know, there is a significant lack of access to dermatology globally. And so these kinds of tools can help improve access because in the hand of a non-specialist, they could provide a diagnostic boost and help triage which patients might need access to care. And so these are the kinds of things that are quite exciting down the pipeline. Additionally, telemedicine is another way that we hope to expand access to care. And with the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen a huge increase in the number of telemedicine visits everywhere, which particularly helps people who live too far away from a dermatologist. One thing that we noticed is that there are issues with the photo quality. Even though we live in the age of Facebook and Instagram, patients have difficulty knowing what kind of image to take in order to send it for their telederm care. And 2 of the most often seen issues are issues around the image or lesion looking too blurry or the lighting being inadequate. And this was the impetus for us to create True Image algorithm, which is an algorithm that basically processes images in real time, no matter what the body part is, no matter what the disease state is, and gives the patients real-time feedback about ways that they can improve their image before they submit it. And we've actually completed a pilot trial here at Stanford and found that when we give this algorithm to patients, it significantly improves the number of clear, crisp pictures we get from them. So I hope you take away from this talk that AI in dermatology, while having some issues that we need to resolve, has the potential to revolutionize our field. I hope you take away that open data is a driver of innovation and decide to participate in helping improve that by sharing data with others. I hope you see that it's important to be cognizant of the pitfalls and biases in AI algorithms and try to correct them early by pointing them out. And finally, I'm most excited about the opportunity for supporting non-specialists and for improving our patient workflows. Thank you so much for listening. And of course, science never happens in a vacuum. So I would love to thank my colleagues and collaborators, as well as my funding sources.
Thank you so much, Dr. Danisho. That was awesome. So at least we see there are pitfalls, but there are hope. Dr. Day.
Yeah, that was an outstanding presentation and incredibly comprehensive. It was really interesting to see how the data is collected and how so many of us are only having access to limited data, which is generating so many papers and maybe skewing how the algorithms are developed. One of the concerns I have about these algorithms and using AI right now is that when I see people in telemedicine, they'll show a spot that they're concerned about, but we're not doing complete skin exams, and AI is only able to evaluate what's in front of it, not what else may be going on. And most of the time people pick the wrong spot, so they may have a melanoma sitting next to a seborrheic keratosis, and they'll feel better that that spot isn't bad. So how can we use AI to get more people in, to make sure that we don't miss something else or give them a false sense of security about what that lesion is versus what else might be going on?
I mean, I think you've hit a limitation. I think we have the same limitation with telemedicine in general, right? Because
Yeah.
we are then doing single lesion. And the difference is when you see a patient in clinic, you can, especially if they have a lot of actinic damage, you will often say, I need to do a full body skin exam actually, or can I please at least look at your back since you don't see your back. But my hope is that at least these tools will help plug in. And there are interesting things that we have talked about doing, for example, like making an assessment of actinic damage, because it's something that you can do visually with tools to help triage patients. That's not something that exists clinically yet, but it's like a very interesting space to think about in terms of research. And so the other things that we think about are ways of trying to at least like make our workflows, like our existing telemedicine workflows, better. So I agree with you that that is the same limitation we have with a human too. If you only see the lesion in front of you and can't assess the entire patient.
Yeah, and it's the same worry with non dermatologists, where they'll show the AI what they're concerned about, even if they're doing a full skin check. The other is around diversity. And one of the things I think AI can do well, and I'd love to get your take on what the work being done on this is that we know that different skin types may be more prone to different conditions. More fair skin is going to be more prone to skin cancer, but certainly darker skin, 5 and 6, can also develop skin cancer that will look very differently. How can we use AI to both understand the propensity for a condition in one particular skin type and not miss it where it's missable, and two, help train physicians to recognize common conditions that appear uncommonly in different skin tones?
Yeah, so I believe that with diverse data, and that's some of the data that we showed, these algorithms can actually perform quite well. There's nothing intrinsic to say that the algorithms can't perform well on diverse skin type. However, the issue is that to date, most of the algorithms that have been developed have significantly underrepresented brown and black skin, which is similar to some of the issues, and this is not a global issue, but particularly in the US, with that same representation issue with textbooks and research papers. So I think that the solution there, and that was sort of the impetus behind us making this first data set release, is to have images of skin cancer and other diseases across diverse skin tones. Because what we find is that when you actually take the algorithms and tune them on the diverse data, the gaps in performance close. So they will be able to perform and recognize the fact that a skin cancer looks different on a dark skin tone, but they have to have the data to do that processing. And of course, if there's something that is more difficult to recognize, that's also an area where a well-performing algorithm that's been tested, clinically tested, could actually be a support system to raise a flag and say, hey, this is at the top of the differential based on, training on thousands of cases of something that maybe a dermatologist hasn't seen as commonly.
Agreed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Daneshu. Thank you, Dr. Day. So we have to jump to the next speaker. The next speaker is Dr. Gilles Lipov. Dr. Gilles Lipov is a board-certified dermatologist and assistant professor of clinical dermatology at the University of Pennsylvania, Perelman School of Medicine. His research focuses on access to care, teledermatology, social media. By the way, this is how we met together. We met together on social media, and health equity. He currently serves as both a senior specialist consultant with telemedicine for Médecins Sans Frontières and is a columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer. Thank you so much, Dr. Lipov, for joining the Skin and Digital Summit. And you will be talking about a subject which is one of my favorite subjects, about misinformation as far as dermatology is concerned. Thank you very much for joining us, and this is to you now.
Well, thank you very much for that really kind introduction, Dominique. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be speaking amongst such amazing colleagues, to follow Dr. Daneshu, to have Dr. Day, Dr. Zink, others be here. Thank you for inviting me. Today, I'm going to be speaking about misinformation in dermatology. I think we're all aware that there is a lot of poor information that our patients and others have access to. And so let's get into it. What is it? What can we do about it? So there's an outline. I'm going to talk about first, what information is the public learning about dermatology in general? Then who is sharing that information? And then when we look at social media and how patients are engaging and sharing information, what can we study and what can we learn from that use? And then finally, it's frustrating to see all this misinformation. Is there anything, or how can we combat misinformation? So certainly, as we're all aware, fake news, misinformation is a big problem. During COVID-19, more so than before, we have seen misinformation being spread by social media. It's always been a problem, even before internet age. Certainly, there have always been cranks in medicine, but internet and social media has certainly amplified that problem. Misinformation can spread much more easily. And dermatology is no stranger to this situation. So just to give you a sense, you might say, well, what do you mean by misinformation exactly? So I'm going to reference one study that an excellent medical student did with me, in which we analyzed blog posts on a parenting blog about sunscreen and sun protection. And one example post, which we coded as sunscreen discouraging, said that this agent was well-researched and had many benefits. My results have been drastic. Previously I could burn in 15 minutes. Now I can handle sun exposure without any burns. So it's promoting a product. It's saying you don't need to wear sunscreen. You're not going to burn. So we were analyzing which posts encouraged or discouraged. And what was really interesting is that the posts that were misinformation, the ones in this case that were discouraging sunscreen, got a lot more engagement. So misinformation is inherently more clickbaitable. It's more interesting, engaged. So it's a challenge. So who are the people who are sharing this misinformation? There have been some studies, including ours, that have worked at this. So when we look at what board-certified dermatologists put out into the world, it appears that nearly always that's reliable information. The problem is that most of the people speaking into the vacuum are not board-certified dermatologists. We did a study on Instagram looking at the dermatology influencers there, and only 3% of those dermatology influencers were board-certified dermatologists. So no wonder they're not able to get heard above all the noise. There's another study of TikTok that has a little better representation of dermatologists as far as educational videos. 40-some% were the source of that. And they were adhering to guidelines, as I said, most of the time up to 97%. But if you look at all of the videos as a whole, we see that a third of the videos on TikTok are by patients, and they tend to be focused on things like homemade remedies, like using raw potatoes to cure acne or banana peels to dissolve warts, this sort of thing. So, you know, we're not necessarily in command of the dialogue. So why are people sharing this information? So I'm sure they're looking for engagement. Maybe they genuinely feel they have something to share of value. But we need to look carefully that there are significant financial and promotional conflicts of interest. So on TikTok, for instance, 35% of those dermatology influencers are promoting promotional content. So that could be skincare brand partnerships, product links, personalized discount codes. These are the sorts of things that we're seeing, and it's predominantly in non-credentialed accounts. And that definitely is a conflict of interest. So, but it's not that dermatologists don't have their own conflicts. Still, like a lot of dermatologists have conflicts, promotional content. So we have to be skeptical of anything that's posted. And we also have to remember, we were just talking, Dr. Desha was just talking about skewed algorithms and the data that we're using to make decisions about things within the field. Well, the institution of dermatology and medicine is predicated on misrepresentative data. In our textbooks, in our education, we don't properly represent skin of color. And so that could bias, that could create misinformation, poor content to learn from. So we have to really be questioning. We can't just say, oh, it's just the problem of the masses. We have our own problems in-house that we need to clean up as well. So now I want to just turn to how, when we're looking at how patients are engaging with this, what can we learn? So this is a really interesting study. We had actually noticed, we were doing a study on Reddit looking at dermatology forums, and we had observed this, that patients often post pictures of even their own genitals looking for advice on sexually transmitted infections. And this other group did a study analyzing that, and we actually partnered with them to do our own study on dermatology forums. And indeed, patients, for a number of reasons, they feel like they can't get into dermatologists. They want that easy convenience. They're younger. Maybe it's an embarrassing problem. They don't want to come in. Maybe there's insurance barriers. But what we do know is patients are seeking medical advice on unsupervised medical forums. So that seems like a problem. We should try to fix that to make it supervised or in a safe, HIPAA compliant way. But also, could this be an opportunity to learn about their needs and also an opportunity to study what they're trying? So we've done some different studies. We actually used natural language processing, a form of AI, to analyze what were the kinds of things that people were talking about on Reddit and dermatology forums. And that's interesting because occasionally there may be things that we haven't given enough study to that we should, and patients can tip us off to things that we should devote more resources to. Predominantly, though, there are things that they're using that are inappropriate. And if we're going to be good practitioners, we need to know what they aren't telling us. Patients often know that they shouldn't be doing certain things. They maybe shouldn't be putting tea tree oil and apple cider vinegar on everything. But if we're reading the forums, we know that we should ask them and prompt them to tell us about that stuff. And certainly there's a lot of potential in all of these forums to promote good quality if we can harness it. So how are we going to combat all this information? So many of us, we're interested, we're engaged in social media. There's all sorts of platforms. It's a little overwhelming how much is out there. How would we go about that? So what might be an effective strategy? So this is an interesting study. They studied Facebook skin cancer campaigns, and they found that amongst institutional messaging, fear appeal, fear mongering was the most common strategy. Say like the American Cancer Society wants to say, don't use tanning beds. They're going to do fear mongering. But if you actually look at the data, like the most effective engagement is more didactic. It's myth busting. It's using celebrity endorsements. It's positive and humorous. Those are things that people want to share, retweet. It's funny, engaging things, not being shamed or negative. Another study of COVID misinformation also interestingly showed that most information, 69% of engagement actually came top down from top celebrities, politicians, entertainers, influencers. So we can't discount the importance of hitting those influencers to help promote strong quality information. So I do think doctors should use social media. It's not just about combating misinformation. I think health communication is inherently part of our job, helps us build a network, as you see, amongst all of us, helps promote your publications and find collaborators. But I also do want to acknowledge.
I have a question. Sorry, I have a question, if I may, on the previous slide. If you go back, you see, I have been reviewing a recent research letter in the GADV, and it was a very interesting analysis of dermatologists and non-dermatologist people acting on social media. and they are being analyzing the posts among on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and the last one, if I remember, yeah, that was on YouTube, according an interesting classification of being first educational, second about personal, third advertising and product review, and the last cluster was humor. Obviously, on social media, everyone has his own style, but what will be your best advice for dermatologists to have a meaningful presence on social media?
So sort of what I was just referencing, and this is a great question. I do think that people don't like to have experts from soapboxes talking down to them. They want to be engaged. They want to be treated with positive, humorous, funny engagement. We're all trained doctors, and we like to think logically, and we want to think like we present all the data exactly as it should. That is going to convince people to do what they should do. But looking at behavioral economics and other sociology and other approaches, people don't act rationally, and we need to engage and think very practically about what works and what disseminates information. We need humorous things. We need celebrities. We need influencers. People listen to them for better or for worse. So we need to find a way to work with them to promote high quality information in their own way so that it gets the most engagement.
Okay, thanks.
So I'll just be wrapping up. But when I was saying I want to promote social media use by doctors, but I do want to acknowledge that it doesn't come without risks. You may be attacked. You may be misunderstood. Some things that you say, could come back to haunt you if it wasn't, it wasn't a good thing to say. It can be distracting, waste time. But I do think that this is an important place, and we have to meet people where they are. And people, especially young people, this is where they're getting information. And if we're not participating in it, we're completely ceding the lines on this issue. So you might say, oh, well, this is too big an issue. How can I, one dermatologist, one doctor, one person, fight this? I think there will always be a role for all of us at individual levels, but we do need to think about more comprehensive strategies. And that's why we did this one study trying to think, could AI play a role in fighting misinformation? So in a test environment, we took those findings from our Reddit dermatology study, and we said, okay, can we develop benevolent bots? Certainly have bad reputation about bots, but if we can try to develop a benevolent bot that can detect when sunscreen or tanning is described inappropriately, can we have an automatic posting that links to high quality information like the American Academy of Dermatology? And we were able to show in this study that yes, it was effective. It was able to detect misinformation and respond to it. We don't know that in a real organic community, would this work? Would people respond to it? How would you feel if someone was constantly behind you, tapping on your shoulder to say, actually, what you just said was not right? Is this going to work? I don't know, but I think we're trying to start a conversation, just like you asked in the beginning mission of this summit, comprehensive conversation. What strategies could work on a macro scale as we continue to work on a micro scale? So in summary, dermatology misinformation is widespread and is a problem. Most misinformation is provided by non-dermatologists, and misinformation does get more engagement. I think studying social media may really inform research and prove an important area for engagement. And I think we have to fight misinformation by providing easy access to high quality information, but not with fear mongering, whether from individual doctors, AI algorithms, or whatever ideas you all have. This is definitely a difficult problem. I want to just acknowledge collaborators, students, and all of you for having me. And please do reach out and engage with me on social media, or if you're interested in this field.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Lipov. Before handing over to Dr. Day, I just want to ask you a question which is coming from the audience, from Alexander Gayduk. He says, Dear Jill, could you estimate how many people actually seek for dermatology help on non-supervised dermatology forum? Is that a big number, or is it a scary trend that can affect healthcare security?
Well, that's a good question. I can't really put a number on it. Reddit is not representative of all people, for instance. It tends to skew more male, more white, some other things. But we do know Reddit is not a small community, and that these dermatology communities are not small. So I don't want to suggest that they're necessarily representative of everyone, but there's certainly a lot of people. I find it really interesting, engaging, for instance, the subreddit on Accutane. It's actually real great because it's mostly people posting pictures of how much improvement they're having, and so that can be really reassuring of other people. I think there are some issues there. I mean, if patients are sharing their own information voluntarily, it's not a violation of HIPAA. But people may not fully understand the implications of putting something out there. Reddit is anonymous, so at least if they choose to be, and so there may be minimal risk. But I foresee a world where there's more of a supervised social media platform, so that you could have maybe engagements amongst patient support groups or other things that can still have some kind of moderation. Although there's just not enough of us, I don't really know how we would establish that. But for the most part, there aren't a lot of open groups of many people because of patient privacy and concerns. But I think there could be a way to at least partially privatize it, or make people be more protected, but still being able to engage with other people who have the same problem. Like Facebook has a lot of support groups, but it's not anonymized, so there might be some issues there.
Dr. Day.
Great presentation, so much to think about, and I have so much I could ask you about. One of the things that I think is interesting is that social media didn't exist not that long ago. So we're sort of in the infancy of what media can do, and it's a little bit of a free-for-all in many ways. Some of the organizations like the AAD, the AAD in particular, is looking and sending out surveys about how to monitor and even sometimes censure dermatologists for what they post on social media and how they present themselves in public. I think as doctors, we're set to a different standard. And in some ways, that's good because we should be at a different standard. But on the other hand, it can also limit us in the way we convey information and how effective we can be. And then on the other side, Jewel, just to comment a little bit, where I see so many dermatologists who are doing things where I can't tell that they're physicians, or the difference between them and influencers, and they're commoditizing and selling their name and their space. And honestly, it makes me wonder how credible we are as a profession when I see some of those things. So how do we balance all of that?
Well, that's an excellent question, Dr. Day. I wish I could answer it simply and easily and say, oh, let's just do X, Y, Z, it'll be all fixed. But I do think that dermatology as a field has a little issue in that we are so case report and case series based some of the time that I think even physicians have a tendency to jump on things a little too easily. And there's also major conflicts of interest financially. So there are certain treatments that have very little or very mixed evidence, but because there's a financial conflict of interest that it would work, it ends up getting over promoted much further than the evidence. And in my opinion, say PRP for hair loss is one of those examples that it's just, maybe it works, but the amount of money being made far exceeds any evidence supporting it. And so I think we need to be skeptical and humble about our own specialty, and also, be welcoming of the people who are just doing the same thing. They're just trying to find things that work. And we need to create an environment in the clinic room that doesn't shame this and say, okay, I know all of us, we all look on the internet, we look for things. What have you found? What things in your skincare regimen have you changed based on what you've read on social media? What questions you have? What are you afraid to ask me about? So it's really about building trust. And I think to your point about dermatologists or physicians on social media maybe degrading their brand a little bit, you need to make sure, I think when you're promoting products, you lose any sense of independence and objectivity. And so I think it is important to minimize conflicts. We can't avoid them, and at least be very explicit and say, if you are promoting something or if you have a conflict, it should be on the TikTok, like, oh, I take money from this company. So, maybe take it with a grain of salt, because that wouldn't be right. I need to represent myself accurately.
Doris, do you want to ask another question, or is that fine?
Yeah, I think it's really around, sometimes when I look at some of the videos that colleagues make, I look and I go, oh no, I don't think that's true. Like I do this in a different order. Like a lot of dermatology is our ideas. And so you can make a whole montage of dermatologists who are all credible, no conflict of interest, saying things that directly contradict what another dermatologist said. So I think, how do we sort of minimize the confusion of what we convey? Would you go out and say, look, this dermatologist said this, but actually I would do it this way? We don't want to put each other down, and I certainly wouldn't. But it's also, I think that there can be confusion to the consumer because they can see known credible doctors, because there sometimes it isn't one set of facts, it's our understanding of the data. And how can we come to a balance of what we put out as dermatologists so that we have some conformity of the science and the facts rather than just our opinions? Or do we need to state that in our videos as well? This is my opinion, this is what I know, this is what we know today, but you might hear something different. I don't know. How do we balance that?
Well,
A quick answer, please.
This is like a style question, but I think a lot of people, I feel like they have to broadcast overconfidence in order to earn respect. They feel like if I don't say things like definitively, people won't think I'm an expert. I feel the opposite. I'm very willing to say I don't know to my patients. I feel that, if they don't respect me for not knowing something, I'm just trying to acknowledge the uncertainty, and that's just how it is. I think it's reasonable that if there is a controversy about a certain thing, about whether a certain product or treatment works, I think you need to call it out in that conversation. You shouldn't say, I think this doesn't work, but other people might feel otherwise. Reasonable people can disagree, but I want you to know that this is not a consensus opinion or something like that. I think that gives you credibility when you acknowledge that. I mean, in social media and TikTok, there's not a lot of room for nuance and going through that, but I think at least being reasonable and as colleagues, not oversimplifying in a way that misrepresents the consensus of opinion would go a long way.
Yep, and I think from somebody in the Q&A pointed out that there's now a branded content feature that helps directly show that this is a sponsored opinion, and I think that's also helpful. And I agree, it is a matter of style. Like I find that PRP works, but I think it doesn't work all the time. And to be honest about it, does build credibility, and it could be a conversation. And maybe the idea then is to have more than one dermatologist actually have us engage with each other. I always think of social media as a place to be social, and as dermatologists, we're not competing with each other. We're trying to convey information. So I think that that's an opportunity for us to try to find a way to gather together on social media and have a voice that's loud as a group.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I don't mean to pick on PRP in particular, but that's clearly an issue that has generated a fair amount of writing and conflict and argument. And I think that any reasonable person talking about that topic should acknowledge a lack of evidence, but that there's a number of people and case series that feel that it helps. So I think it's there are ways to engage with that instead of having to say this. Definitely, everyone loves the feeling of bringing manna to heaven to their patients, right? But we need to be accurate.
Absolutely,
Okay,
I agree. Thank you.
Yeah, we have to jump to the next speaker. Sorry to interrupt this very interesting discussion at least. So the next speaker is Dr. Alexander Zink. Dr. Zink is a board-certified dermatologist, MPH PhD. He is consultant physician at the Department of Dermatology and Allergy at the Technical University of Munich in Germany. Dr. Zink specializes in chronic skin disease, public health, and digital medicine with a focus on digital technology in the prevention and people-centered healthcare. He is a founder also of a very interesting meeting, which is called New Idea in Medicine. Unfortunately, Dr. Zink could not make it for a last-minute issue. However, he has recorded his presentation, so we are going to hear his presentation, but we won't have any question as far as he's not here. So on the technical side, you can launch now Dr. Zing's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. It's a great honor to be here at this amazing event. And I'm very happy to present my idea why I believe that the smart bathroom is the future focus for dermatology, but also for medicine maybe, and skin care. So I would like to start with an overview because as you all know, smart homes are continuously evolving. We have bedrooms with smart mattresses, for example. We have refrigerators which tell us how much milk we might need in the kitchen, but the center is the bathroom. Why the bathroom? Because usually every human being uses it at least once a day. And there you have some features which could, or which are, as I think, very promising to us to use in skincare and dermatology. So we have the mirror, we have the toilets and the shower. And in a mirror, what do you do? You look at yourself and you also see skin diseases. And of course, you could use AI to then real-time track your skin diseases and real-time let the mirror tell you what skin disease you may have. This is possible coming from the AI background. And as you all know, there are publications which have shown that neural networks can perfectly classify melanoma versus non-melanoma. Also comparing with dermatologists, there are neural networks which recognize non-melanoma skin cancer, and there are publications which present a smart identification of psoriasis, for example, but also for acne and for many, many other different diseases. So eventually we might end up with this smart mirror, which not only gives us information on the weather condition, for example, on that day, or the calendar as more or less replacing our smartphones, but you can also have a face recognition, a skin disease recognition, and even a mood detection, for example, to track how effective is the respective drug you're taking for your skin disease, for example. Of course, when you get all these information from your mirror, you probably would also like to talk to the mirror, right? Just like our the Brother Grimm fairy tales are telling us in Snow White, mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is first of all. We would love to have mirrors who we can talk to. And that probably will be possible pretty soon when you have a look at this Nature publication, which was published last year in March 2021. So what did the authors do? They trained a neural network on the basis of 400 million newspaper articles, trained this network, this artificial intelligence, then to debate. And then it was an official debate between this artificial intelligence and a human being. It is very seeable. Feel free to scan this QR code and you will see a YouTube video of this debate of man versus machine, basically. And you will see that the project debater, which was the name of this artificial intelligence, was not so good yet compared to the human experts, but eventually we will have a perfect system which will be trained with all of this knowledge out there in newspapers, in textbooks, but also on the internet. So you can ask your mirror then a question and the AI will look it up on the internet and let you exactly know what the current knowledge on your respective question is. The second part in the bathroom I would like to focus on is the shower. So why could the shower be interesting for dermatology? Because obviously you are in there and you can get full body images and you use it every day, so you can really track your diseases, what is happening with it. So we might end up with full body 3D capture systems, such as, for example, this system on the market. It's a huge system yet, but in the upcoming years, it probably gets smaller, smaller, and smaller, fitting in your shower at home. And then you will generate your avatar. You can look it up on the screen, on your smartphone, on a computer, look at close-ups of the skin diseases, and then tell the computer what you want to focus on. For example, you want to focus on all modes which are bigger than 0.5 centimeters in diameter, and then the computer automatically tracks them in a different pattern, and you can compare which ones are benign and which ones seem to or have some signs of malignancy. Of course, this is an amazing tool also to use artificial intelligence based lesion risk assessment, and you will not only do a A-based lesion risk assessment on the current picture, but also on the development of the disease or of the skin finding, especially when you track it on an everyday basis in your shower, for example. So as I think what's going to happen is that we will have this continuously taking pictures, these avatars, which we will then compare with each other. So the AI has another tool, another way of assessing skin diseases, not only on the current state, but also on how it developed within the last few weeks or few months or even years. And the final part, which every human being has to use, is our toilets. And the publication on smart toilets, they're amazing what's out there. They're Nature reviews, for example. This is the publication I brought to you today. The authors developed a smart toilet for personalized health monitoring, and it's actually already on the market. And what does it do? It does 10-point urine analysis for diabetes, kidney disease, and so on. It can diagnose neurogenic bladders, but also prostatic hypertrophy, and also constipation, diarrhea, and pelvic floor disorders. And again, it's not only the current state, it's a snapshot of your disease as you probably do today when you visit a doctor, but it tracks you on an everyday basis, which then gives you additional information and how you self-develop over time, and then eventually to diagnose a disease, but also to prevent a disease. So I personally believe that smart bathroom will be a future of dermatology and medicine, but also in combination with the different other tools of digital dermatology, medicine and dermatology will be shifted from a pattern recognition comparing an individual with the general population, of then diagnosing and treating diseases towards digital health, where it's of pattern recognition, the individual pattern of health versus the individual pattern of diseases, and then comparing these patterns, and then eventually focusing on not diagnosing diseases and then treating them, but towards maintaining health. Thank you for listening, and I'm very happy to take your questions.
Okay, obviously we won't have question. What is fantastic with Dr. Zink is that he has always groundbreaking presentation. So sorry, we are not able to go through question, but I will make sure maybe to invite Dr. Zink in December so we can have more interaction and a good conversation. I would like to now introduce the next speaker. The next speaker is Dr. Johan Hart. Dr. Hart is a board certified dermatologist and is a co-founder of a great startup. He's a chief medical officer of MD Algorithm. And I've invited Dr. Hart to present his company. Dr. Hart, this is for you.
Yes, hello, and thanks for inviting me. I would like to present today what we do with MD Algorithms. Our mission is to democratize dermatology with AI. So what is the problem? More than 3 billion people around the world struggle with skin and hair disorders, and unfortunately 90% never see a dermatologist. Dermatologist visits, as we all know, are short and expensive, and they go to drugstores and take one size fits all that is often too irritating or simply ineffective. So how does it work? All you need to do is take a selfie on your smartphone. The app in MD Acne, the acne service will analyze your acne. And based on the analysis, you will get a customized kit to your doorstep. So we have collected more than 5 million images of people with acne, and based on that, developed the first AI machine learning that can analyze acne in a very accurate way. The analysis works on the device itself, so it is super fast. It works on live video, and it's very scalable, actually infinitely scalable. And it assesses, in addition to acne lesions, also dark spots, acne scars, and moles. The personalized product that people get are, of course, based on FDA-approved over-the-counter medicines, which are combined with more than 100 plant-based ingredients. The MD Acne app is the most popular dermatology app in the world, and on the top of the US and UK Apple App Store. It's more than 15,000 ratings with an average score of 4.6, and it was downloaded 4 million times today. The second thing we do is hair loss, and it works actually the same. We call it MD Hair. You take a short quiz on your smartphone, you take a picture of your scalp, and based on the analysis, get a customized kit. So this application was launched only 6 months ago, and we already see some great results that you can see right here. At a glance on the company itself, more than 3 million people have used the services. We have more than 5 million images, high quality images of people with acne and hair loss, and more than 500,000 kits were sent to people. If we want to look at the macro picture of how we see direct-to-consumer dermatology, I would call it, it started with companies that provided one-size-fits-all in the 90s. The problem was that it was not customized, and the treatment that was achieved was low quality without any kind of support to the people that used it. The next wave was telemedicine that started in 2010 and got larger in the last 2 years. It's 100% human, mostly done by nurse practitioners or sometimes doctors that are not dermatologists. The problem is that it's very hard to scale. So these nurses need to see hundreds of pictures per day, and the analysis will be quite mediocre. The support will be quite mediocre due to fatigue. And worst of all, the slow response time, because there are so many people, and they usually get a response after a few days. So the customer experience is not good. What we try to bring to the market, to the world, is something which is 90% based on AI and 10% human, what we call the human touch. So with the AI, it's very scalable. We can go to millions of people can use it at any moment, actually. And it's more accurate than of course, one size fits all or anything that people buy themselves. Better treatment. And the user experience is great. It's immediate analysis, which is combined with a human 24/7 support for the people that need it. So to summarize, we believe that the next generation of direct-to-consumer skincare and hair care will be based on AI. This decade will be the time that it will happen, and customers will look for skincare and hair care which is customized to their needs. And we believe that MD algorithms can be a world leader in using AI in dermatology. It is well positioned to provide customized skincare and hair care to millions of people worldwide who can't get to a dermatologist today. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I was muted. Thank you so much, Yoram, to have accepted this 5 minutes pitch presentation. I know it's challenging, but you have made it fantastic. We have to conclude now, so I will ask to the production to share my slide about the conclusion that I would like to share with our audience. So I just wait. Here we are. Thank you so much. So we are preparing now the Skin Angel Summit for December 10. And here are some of the subjects that we will discuss. We'll talk about blockchain technology and non-fungible token applied to the skin business. Technology always in context of the skin business. We'll review sensors and AI advances for mainstream skin condition, but also for skincare. We have seen that there are pitfalls, so AI is not always bright and doesn't give always solutions. So we are going to talk about the digital divide, which is a strong issue. We'll also address the issue of teledermatology, e-commerce, social commerce, and e-pharmacy, because this is a very important topic. We'll address, as we have done today with misinformation related to dermatology, we will talk about misinformation related to skincare and aesthetics. So Dr. Day, bear with me because I will come back to you on this. And we will have a startup corner. Okay, so if you like to join, I mean, you are among the list, so you will receive notification. Before concluding, I would like to, the next slide, please. So I would like to thank very much our faculty. Thank you very much for trusting the venture and the conversation that I'm trying to build. And your participation is really a treasure for me. Thank you also for Advancing Innovation for hosting and broadcasting this summit. I would like also to thank you, IMCAS, because IMCAS has broadcast from IMCAS Academy this summit in the same time. And obviously stay tuned for December 10. And also for 2023 that I'm already preparing, and I'm expecting to have an even stronger footprint. Next slide, please. And as I told you, we are hosted today by dermatology, by Advancing Innovation in Dermatology. And in 30 minutes, Advancing Innovation in Dermatology is starting what they call the Dermatologic Innovation Forum. So as you see it starts at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So if you like to join, this is a fantastic meeting. There is, if I'm not wrong, 5 hours discussion, mostly about topical issue around dermatology, antibiotic resistance, and also there is 2 startups presenting, Avava Technology from the US and Aesthetic from Israel. So you can register, you have the website address here, and you can enjoy the rest of the day, still busy with skin, dermatology and so forth, a bit less digital, but also always skin and dermatology. So I would like again to thank you very much. And I wish you all the best for the summer, and I'll see you in December, and we're working. Thank you, bye-bye. Merci.